This is TWiT.
AI as a fundamental concept is in startup mode, right?
Yes.
They're in go fast, break things mode.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Is that risky?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, as long as it's not steering my car, I guess.
What if it's steering an election?
Yes, that's the worry, right?
What
that's
if, you hit
it on the head.
What if the results in 2024, I don't mean like AI will vote, but AI disinformation might prove.
It sure can influence.
Yeah.
It has the power to influence.
Did you guys see the Joanna Stern video in the Wall Street Journal where she
cloned herself,
her voice?
Yeah,
I mean, she fooled her bank, right? I think Joseph Cox at Motherboard did that as well, and they were able to fool banks. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I worry about in the short term. Is like just a serious increase. I told my mom that like we have to have a safe word because if you think I'm calling you, like ask the safe word because I feel like
she fooled the bank and her family.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that kind of stuff, that's what I'm really terrified about. Like, I feel like disinformation sometimes can be sort of a nebulous concept. And like, what do we mean? What does it look like? Right. Like, I'm not saying that it's not a danger, but when you see that kind of thing, it's like, okay, if they can get into your bank account, it's sort of game over.
I mean, but social engineering has existed for a long time. People have been playing tricks on banks and other institutions for a long time. So I think what all of this leads to is just we need better security across the board against malicious actors, whether they're humans or AI or a combination of those things. Stuff just needs to be more secure, and maybe AI will bring us there. Maybe that will be a good thing, good outcome out of all this.
When you combine the potential, that what we mentioned at the beginning of this, where we were talking about the reviews and all the review spam and everything, take the malicious intent of those folks with the power of AI and someone who knows social engineering, who would typically be a human who is trying to social engineer their way into your bank account. Now back that up with AI. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Right. Like that's extremely powerful. It's learning. It's taking a brief few minutes to Google everything it could possibly about you and come up with much more solid guesses about any possible security question answer. Right. Just in an instant. Potentially on the fly as the call is happening, right? That's dangerous, right? Yeah. We need much better. I mean, everything should be two-factor, even when they're talking to you on the phone. And I don't mean like some companies try to do a second factor to add security, but I've lost count how many times I didn't have my second factor, for example, to make changes to like an AT&T account or something like that, and you add the PIN code. But then if you don't know the PIN code, they can just turn it off right there on the call for you, right? Maybe they ask your birthday or something. So that it doesn't, it didn't do any good, right? It's certainly not going to get the better of an AI trying to get in.
We're in trouble.
Yeah, I know.
We're in deep
trouble. It's real depressing.
This got depressing fast.
Yeah. Well, it means that all of the people on the other end of those transactions need to be on the bus, right? They need to have the competing
which they're not.
AI.
I mean, I remember when Charles Schwab said, "Oh yeah, you can use your voice to log in," and I thought this doesn't seem like a good idea. Well, now we know it's not, right? Terrible idea. Do you have safe words, Janko, for your family?
I don't know if you want to go there.
I actually talked to my daughter.
We might all have them.
No, I talked to my daughter about this. I said, if you hear from me, and so we worked out a scheme. I don't want to say too much about that, but
don't give up the password to your luggage, Leo.
I do have to tell a story. A couple of years ago, something happened to me that no AI was involved in this at all, but I got a call. I had an LA number at that time, and it was a scam call. But somebody pretended to be, somebody pretended that they had abducted a family member.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And basically, somebody was screaming in the background, calling my name. And I could figure out really quickly that it was not real because I wasn't living in LA anymore. They didn't know the name of the family member, which was sort of an important detail in a hostage negotiation situation. But I just imagine at the time for people who maybe coming from countries where abductions are more common or are just in different situations where that could be a real situation. So that could be really crazy. And now you add AI to it, obviously, gets even scarier when the voice now sounds like it as well. And I think there was stories about that recently too, where people have been using the very same scam, but with simulated voices.
It happened to one of our regulars on our shows. Larry Magid last week published this article in the San Jose Mercury News, How I Nearly Fell for a Frightening Virtual Kidnapping Scheme.
Oh my God.
20 minutes of terror. Now, this is a guy, by the way, who's as technical as we are. He actually is the founder of an online safety organization, connectsafely.org. He said the call felt real to me and threatened to separate me not from money, but from someone. It was his wife. They used a simulated voice. He says, it began Tuesday morning when my wife drove to San Francisco to visit a friend. Most days she and I are together at home or she's somewhere nearby. He says, I was already a little nervous because, the last time she drove to San Francisco, she was sideswiped by another car. 12:37, my cell phone rang with a caller ID that at first glance looked like it was my wife. I now know it wasn't exactly her number. Same area code, same prefix, same last number. So it was all but 3. At the time, oh, that's her, because he was worried, right? What I heard was a crying, upset woman. I assumed it was my wife because it came from her phone. This happened to him last week, by the way. I repeatedly asked what the matter was, but I couldn't understand her answer. All I could imagine was something horrible must have happened. Then a man came on the phone, identified himself as a police officer. I'm telling, this is worth reading and knowing about and telling family members about to understand this scam goes on. He said, I'm a cop. I need to verify who I'm talking with. He said, well, normally I'm going to refuse a request, but I felt desperate. I gave him my name, my wife's name. He then admitted he wasn't a police officer, but a member of a drug cartel.
My God.
Now, this is a nightmare.
This is a nightmare. And I know Larry. He's sharp. He's like us. He's not going to fall for this stuff. And said that he had my wife with him in San Francisco. I don't know how. He says he knew she was in San Francisco. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he said something about her location. Maybe not. I wasn't thinking clearly. A security expert I spoke with later explained the technique. Start with fear. Follow with an authority figure to gain your trust, the cop, and then pivot to the threat. I mean, this is like a pattern. He says, it worked with me, even though I pride myself on critical thinking skills. There was enough information to cause me to worry it could be the real thing. Either way, I knew I was dealing with a criminal. So while I had him on my cell phone, he at least did this. I put him on speaker and dialed 911 from my desk phone. I didn't say anything to the 911 operator, but knew they would hang on and listen to the call. At one point, the caller told me she'll be okay. Just bring $5,000 to a Walmart parking lot in San Jose. I found out later the 911 operator put my local police on the line, so they heard nearly the entire call, including the ransom demand and the threat. He told me not to contact anyone, asked me if I was alone. I said I was. At one point, the 911 operator asked me for my wife's phone number, which I whispered into the desk phone. The scammer heard me, asked who I was talking to. I denied I was speaking to anyone, just said I was talking to myself because I was nervous. He then asked me to get in my car. I didn't, but kept him on the phone as long as I could. The car request was to initiate the next step in this, the compliance process. Once you follow one instruction, you're more likely to complete the process and pay the ransom, right?
So do they actually want them to go to the Walmart parking lot?
Yeah. He says we spoke for over 11 minutes. He finally hung up on me, probably because he realized I wasn't going to comply. So anyway.
Well, even though he initially fell for it, that is extremely quick thinking to call 911 on another line.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, I would say Larry is no more vulnerable than any of us here. He's savvy, right? So the police came to his house. The officer said it's likely a scam. He did say, call your wife. There was no answer. He called again and she answered. She's fine, never in danger. The police had texted my wife and they contacted SFPD to dispatch an officer to look for her. So they took this very seriously.
Wow.
So
was she just blissfully unaware driving to San Francisco?
Yeah, she had no idea, right? So
this article
needs
to be like a public service announcement.
Yeah, well, he put it in the San Jose Mercury News. I encourage people read it. I guess it wasn't really an impersonation of his wife's voice. It was just a scared female voice, but it was enough and it was close. They knew something about him. And this is, by the way, one of the things that's really scary these days is there's enough information out there with data brokers and elsewhere. Bad guys are able to learn enough about you to really kind of fool you. They almost knew his wife's phone number. Somehow they knew she was in San Francisco or guessed she was in San Francisco. We had a scam happen at work where somebody impersonated our CEO and sent him messages to everybody, not to me, but to all the employees, all her direct reports. And fortunately, our staff was smart enough they didn't do anything about it. But I can imagine what the next steps would have been. And this is because somehow our company structure, our corporate structure, the names of our employees, their emails or phone numbers, and Lisa's email and phone number were available to a bad guy who then was able to implement that attack. This is how spear phishing happens now. This is very scary stuff. And
spear phishing is a tale as old as time.
Well, and for a long time, I still kind of feel this way, like I don't have any privacy, fine, so what? What's the worst they can do? Well, now we're starting to see that maybe privacy is important for security, if nothing else. This episode of Tech Break is brought to you by ACI Learning. IT Pro from ACI Learning offers binge-worthy cybersecurity and IT training in everything your team needs to advance your IT learning. Use code TWiT30 at checkout for 30% off a standard or premium IT Pro membership. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit to learn more.